Hi guys, it's Rob from Not Just Travel. Welcome back to the channel. Now, we just got back from 12 nights on SAGA Cruises Spirit of Discovery. We went from Dover down the west coast of Spain, Portugal and France. Now, SAGA's target market is over 50s. Unfortunately, my wife and I now both fall into that demographic, me certainly more than her. So how did we find it? Now, most of SAGA's cruises leave from either Dover or Portsmouth. This one, as I said, was out of Dover. Now, one of the benefits that SAGA offers is collection from and then back to your home address within certain geographical restrictions. Now, this does mean that your holiday actually starts the minute you walk out of your door, which is a definite bonus. This meant we didn't need to worry about knowing about the boarding time, as the driver arranged to pick us up within half an hour time frame, so we were there actually in plenty of time. Now, as I've said on previous videos, I always book assistance for my wife so that she doesn't need to stand in the check-in queues. So a very short walk from the drop-off point into the terminal where we met the check-in staff, who then directed us across to the assistance desk, approximately a 30-metre walk. We were then checked in and she was given her wheelchair and the porter. She did note it did feel somewhat strange being pushed around by somebody who's 15 or 20 years older than her. Anyway, so he pushed her up and over the air bridge, through security and into reception. On all the other cruise lines we've been on, the wheelchair assistance takes us right to the cabin door. It seems unlikely that this is a SAGA procedure, more likely to be Port of Dover policy, but both times we've been on the SAGA cruise, the wheelchair assistant stops at reception. Bit strange. We're then guided through to our cabin by a member of the crew. The whole process, though, was very, very smooth. From entering the building to being in the ship took less than about 20 minutes. And so to the cabin. Now, this is a standard balcony room on deck 8. It's a normal configuration, huge double bed, although obviously this can be reset as twins if needed. 2 single tub chairs and a small coffee table with a nice sized dressing table. There are several power points on the dressing table and beside the beds, and nicely there are USB charging points in both the bedside lamps. Tea and coffee is available at the end of the coffee table, and of course this is replenished daily by the cabin steward. And unusually there's fresh milk in the fridge. So looking at the wardrobes, well, there's a good amount of hanging and drawer space with lovely easy to use removable hangers. My only criticism here was that the sliding wardrobe doors, they did tend to be a little bit on the heavy side. Purely to make a little bit more space, we removed the life jackets from the wardrobe and put them under the bed. This created a bit more space in the cupboard. Now, the fridge, I've already mentioned the fridge, it's a very small one. You can put a bottle of water in there, but not a great deal else. It really is very, very tiny. So moving on to the toilet. Now, this is a nice size. You've got a corner shower glass cubicle with a very simple to use shower. A toilet with a well-positioned toilet roll holder. Now, you'd have thought this is common sense, but see my Queen Anne video where the toilet roll was right back behind you. You've got a shaver socket and face funnel provided, as well as refillable toiletries. Now, one thing that was really clever, if you share a cabin and you need to use the loo during the night, you'll quite often find that you turn on the light and it floods the cabin with light, which quite often will disturb your partner. Now, SAGA have ingeniously created effectively a night light around the mirror, so you don't have to turn on the main light at night. This is the first time I've seen this, and it really is an excellent idea. So moving on to the balcony, you've got 2 chairs and a small table. It's really quite small, the balcony. Unfortunately, there are no recliners here, at least in our cabin, although it may have been different in others. The seats were comfortable enough, cushions and backrest, and we quite often spent several hours just chilling in the sun. Now, I've commented on other videos about the speed, or the lack thereof, in getting our luggage, and how on several ships, even brand new ones, the passenger lifts are used by the crew for the transportation of luggage. One day whilst passing an open crew-only door, I saw a lift inside, so obviously the internal lifts are used by the crew, which frees up the passenger lifts. A bit of basic design there. You've got a total of 6 passenger lifts in 2 stairwells, which allegedly can accommodate 17 people, but as several people mentioned, that would be a very cosy trip. So let's look at the ship as a whole. The first thing I noticed was a sign at every exit from the lift lobbies giving directions. That's a very simple idea and oh so useful. It's so easy to become disorientated when you can't see which way you're travelling, and these really do help. So if we start in the central area, the main atrium if you like, this is a lovely open 3-storey space leading from what they call the living room on the ground floor, which is level 5, with a lovely curved stair up to level 6. Levels 6 and 7 have open balconies which overlook this space into the living room. Behind the stair is a big feature wall with imagery which is probably based on SAGA's 70-year history. Now the living room spans the whole width of the ship, and it's clean and simple with lots of comfortable seating throughout, and a coffee bar with a selection of nibbles and ice creams. This is where you enter the ship for the first time, and there's a small piano and small performing area. It's a simple plain decor, but the stairway leading upwards gives it a really nice elegance. Elsewhere on level 5 you've got the spa and salon, more of that in a minute, a small shop containing gifts as well as the essential items you may have forgotten, and a small jewellery outlet. If you then continue towards the rear, you'll come to the main dining space, the grand dining room. So moving up a deck to the promenade deck. Towards the front you have the chart room, which is a small conference room, and then of course the obligatory art gallery, and then finally the theatre. This is called the Playhouse. This is a traditional theatre layout, nicely fitted out with plenty of seating reserved for people with mobility problems and also space for wheelchairs. The Playhouse is used for talks during the day and then evening performances. As you head backwards, you come to the South Cape Bar. Now this is perhaps the most traditional area on the ship. It's all low comfy seating with several gloriously comfortable Chesterfields, and you have live music coming from down below in the evenings. Now, not surprisingly, we spent quite a lot of time here, and the bar staff were absolutely phenomenal, very helpful and very friendly. And we had far too many vodka martinis and cosmopolitans there, but hey, who's counting? As you carry on to the rear, you come to what they call the specialty restaurants. This is the club, which is basically a steakhouse, east to west, which is Asian fusion on one side, and then coast to coast on the other. This is the fish restaurant. Again, a bit more of that in a minute. At the very top of the atrium is the craft area, the library and a card room. The rest of this deck is cabins. Now, the library, well, it's certainly not the largest library I've ever seen. I was told that there used to be far more books here, but many were removed as the world reopened from COVID, and they just haven't been replaced. But there are several areas up here where you can just sit and read and have coffee from a machine. So back to the spa and the salon. Now this is all staffed by medical professionals, and they offer a nice range of massage and alternative therapies. These are all chargeable. Elsewhere in the spa area you have a hydrotherapy pool, steam room and sauna. These are included in your fare. And as you leave the spa, you've got the hair and nail salon, also at extra cost. So moving outside, the promenade deck on deck 6. Now this goes right around the whole ship, and it's a very pleasant walk. The promenade itself is beautiful and wide with the lifeboats above, so you get an almost uninterrupted view of the ocean. This also means there's plenty of space for lounges so that the passengers can just relax and watch the world float by. 3.9 miles this deck will give you 1 mile, and you quite often meet the same people wandering around on their exercise regime. So moving to the top of the ship, you have the Britannia Lounge at the pointy end, the bow, with its balcony containing several abstract pieces of art. Britannia Lounge is used through the day and night for quizzes and various entertainments. It's a light and airy space with lots of comfortable seating. Always very busy in the evening, so if you want to see an act or take part in a quiz, you do need to get there early to get a seat. There is of course another bar here and lots of very attentive wait staff. As you come out of the Britannia Lounge and start to move backwards, you come into the open air on the Lido deck, where you have tables and chairs, sun lounges, and the single pool with hot tubs close by. This is always a popular place on a hot sunny day. This is also where the sail away parties are held with entertainment on the stage. Once you leave the open air, you head into the second main eatery, the buffet, or the grill. And then if you go right through that, you come to the veranda where there's another bar and you can sit and eat and drink in the sun. You've got 2 further decks above, the sun deck and observation, where you can just sit and soak up the sun. Above the Britannia Lounge is the gym and the fitness suite. You've got hosted classes in one part and then the gym with a good selection of equipment. One thing that really did make me laugh, there's no access up the small winding staircase to the fitness centre for wheelchair users. However, at the top of the stairs is a wheelchair accessible toilet. Sorry, I just noticed stuff like that. So, moving on to food. Now, I've already mentioned there are 2 main eateries, the grand dining room where the food is brought to your table at every meal, or the grill, which is self-service for breakfast and lunch. And in the evening, it's waiter service, although not as formal as the grand dining room, generally only has tables of 2 or 4. The veranda at the very rear has a small menu of freshly cooked scampi, burgers, hot dogs and stuff like that. But you can also eat your food you just got from the grill and sit there if that takes your fancy. You've got 3 other eateries. These are the specialty restaurants. Most other cruise lines, specialty restaurants are an extra cost. Saga have them all included, but they do require you to book in advance and they do place a limit on how many times you can use them on any given cruise. We ate in the club on one night and coast to coast on another. The club is basically a steakhouse with a variety of meat-based meals, although alternatives are available if you're not really into meat. The food here was the same quality as the rest of the ship. It's all very nicely presented and very freshly cooked. This was of course washed down with several glasses of wine, all included in the fare. The other speciality was Coast to Coast, the fish restaurant. The food here was delicious. I had crab and lobster, my wife had cod with cauliflower cheese, very nice, and it really was exceptional. The table next to us had the sharing starter. I had to take a picture, it looked delicious. Now the grand dining room, this is the most formal or sort of traditional eatery on Spirit of Discovery. This has a selection of tables from 2 up to 10 and you can request wherever possible to be seated at a certain size table. And just personal preference, we generally went for a table of 6. Now sharing a table does mean you get to meet fellow diners, have lots of interesting conversations and generally you get to meet very interesting people. Overall, the food was excellent. Now, a couple of dishes I wasn't overly struck on, but hey, that's just personal preference. Generally speaking, you can't complain, it was all excellent. For me, the only real disappointment was the cheese selection. It was certainly varied and you can generally select what you want from the menu. But there wasn't an awful lot put on the plate and, to be honest, much of it really seemed very bland and tasteless. The grand dining room does offer a sit-down breakfast as well as dinner. Generally speaking, I prefer a little bit less formality in the morning, so the grill is the place to be. You've got a huge selection of food in the buffet or the grill at both lunch and breakfast. You have your branded cereals, freshly cooked pastries, some of them still warm. Your normal array of fried foods, bacon, sausages, crispy bacon, hash browns, etc. And a choice of fried or gloriously creamy scrambled egg. If you prefer a continental breakfast, there's always a good selection of meats and cheeses. Now my wife does like her fresh fruit for breakfast, so she was a very happy teddy when I supplied her with fresh melon, strawberries and assorted bits and bobs, all topped off with a ladle of Greek yogurt. I couldn't see any granola on the serving benches, so I asked one of the kitchen staff. Off he went to the back rooms and came back with a bowl of granola just for me. Next morning he saw me, and while I was dishing up the fruit, he came out with a bowl of granola. Now that's what you call service. There's also a hot food station where food is cooked to order. You can have fresh poached eggs, sometimes there's egg benedict or Florentine, as well as waffles, American pancakes or omelettes, all very nice and very, very fresh. At lunchtimes in the grill, there's a similarly wide range. You have your hot food selection, which could include fish, curries, hot pots, etc., as well as a good range of salads or other foods. As before, the hot food station has fresh pizza or selection of daily dishes, as well as roast of the day. if you'll pardon the pun, it'd be very easy to pig out of this and get very fat. There is one thing to be aware of. Unlike many other ships, there's no 24-hour buffet. The grill stops serving at 3 o'clock to get ready for dinner. Now, this could be an issue if you have a day out and you want lunch when you get back. You can get it from room service, and that of course is included, but this might take up to about 45 minutes, so just be aware. Wait staff in the grill, they're very efficient, filling up your water glasses as needed, and of course offering tea or coffee or wine at lunchtime. Now, another unique aspect of a Saga cruise is that all the drinks are included. Many lines have teas and coffees included, but Saga have everything except maybe extra bottles of wine or champagne and a few real speciality stuff. Since my last Saga cruise 2 years ago, they now include branded or premium spirits within they're included, which is nice. We did notice there's quite an age range in the wait staff. You've got your normal young ones, probably mid to early 20s, right through to some who are probably in their 40s, maybe even older. Many of them come from the Philippines, and it's pretty obvious they all had the same English teacher. Welcome! Love them. But whatever their age, they're all incredibly helpful and were often seen assisting less able-bodied passengers with food or drinks. Few of the serving girls on the hot food counter deserve a mention. They were just so bubbly, you just couldn't help but smile with them. So moving on to entertainment, well, it's always difficult to try and comment on this. What I like, you don't, and vice versa. But the resident band, Viva, they played every day, and they've got quite a good repertoire, covering standards right through to disco, and they were very, very popular. There were several guest artists on board on our cruise, single vocalists and groups, and then covering a wide range of styles. On this cruise, we had a Simon and Garfunkel tribute act, and a group called the Vintage Boys doing rock and roll, as well as several female performers. Also plays and shows in the Playhouse. Now let's throw back to the more traditional cruise experience is the semi-classical cocktail pianist and string trios playing throughout the ship. During a conversation with some fellow passengers, it was said that this is a very hard demographic to provide music for. I mean, many of the older guests would have been young in the 50s or 60s, while many of the younger ones, and I use that term loosely, would have been partying in the 70s. So you've got a huge range of music that can be played. So as I said, it's very hard to comment. It's one man's meat's another man's poison, as it were. So dress codes. Now, Saga do have a dress code in the evening. Most nights it's simply just smart casual. On our 12-night cruise there were 3 formal nights. These aren't themed, but just ordinary black tie. There's no specific requirement to take part in the formal nights, i.e. getting dressed up. But the Daily Bulletin does say if you don't want to get dressed up, you can use a dedicated area of the grill restaurant, but they still want you to be smart casual. Now, I'd estimate that there are probably 3/4 of the men in dinner jackets, with the remainder in suit and ties. It's probably a similar percentage of the ladies who wore cocktail dresses or long dresses. Now, there's a small photograph gallery on deck 6. On formal nights, photographers have set up a couple of small backdrops where you could have your pictures taken. Now, to be honest, I really think that Saga have missed a trick with this one. On other lines, I've seen photographers wandering around the ship during the day, at excursion points, and even in the restaurants on the formal nights. But maybe they were shy because I hardly saw them. This is the first cruise we've been on, certainly since COVID, when we haven't had at least one photograph done on formal night. One thing that did surprise me was the excursions. The activities are described either in the brochure or on the cabin TV, and the activity levels are shown. Many of them are described as strenuous, and some include walking for maybe a mile or two on uneven ground. That just strikes me odd, given this demographic. Now, staying on the subject of excursions, again, I don't think this is within the control of Saga, but at several ports there was a very slow bus or shuttle service into town. Now, this necessitated some passengers having to stand for up to an hour. That wouldn't be good for any audience, but I don't think it's ideal for this group. So, the average age of our cruise passenger in the UK is 49. On Saga, the average age is 79. Now, this is not really surprising as the starting entry age is 50. The average of myself and my companions was 69, and I would hazard a guess that was probably a representative age of most of the people that we saw. Unfortunately, I'm now well and truly inside the Saga demographic, which really doesn't impress me at all. I'm way too young to be this age. There were some on board who were obviously very old and frail, and quite a few who were a good deal younger than myself. This is certainly an older cruise, although, to be fair, I've seen a similar age range on other lines. But there were quite a few who needed a lot of help getting around. Now, this is important, something for you to be aware of. If you want to go on any cruise and you need assistance with mobility, particularly around the ship, it is vitally important that you tell whoever's booking your cruise that you need this assistance. There was a case a few weeks ago when someone did not mention when booking that they needed assistance, and they then turned up in a wheelchair and they were refused boarding. Quite simply, this is because the cruise line or the ship only has a certain number of staff available for assistance in the event of an emergency. So, once the available cabins and all the staff have been allocated, there's just no more space for wheelchairs or assistance. So, would I go back on a Saga cruise again? Now, there are many similarities in style and feel between certainly the older Cunard ships and Fred Olsen that my wife and I have sailed on, and we both enjoy this style. There's something very pleasant about not having to worry about getting to or from the port, and there's something very, very nice about not having to worry about spending anything extra once you're on board. Your holidays cost you X £1,000, you don't need to spend any more. That does make for easier budgeting. So overall, yes, I would go again. The ship's been well designed and laid out, and from the moment you get on board, you're looked after in a certain style. So if you're looking for a traditional British cruise experience for older passengers, but one that is all-inclusive rather than pay-as-you-go, then Saga may be the one for you. Generally speaking, the atmosphere is calm and relaxing, and it's very conducive to a relaxing holiday. Now, I hope you found this interesting. Please give me a like, leave any comments below, and of course, consider subscribing so that you get notified of my next trip. Thanks for watching.